Well, how do you do, buckaroos? This is Joe Layden from Cowboys and Indians magazine. And it is my great pleasure today to be talking to director Julian Higgins. He is the man behind an exceptional new drama. You might call it a neo-Western noir called God's Country, starring Thandiwe Newton, of course, most of our readers are familiar with for Westworld. And well, okay, Julian, if you were sitting next to somebody on a plane and they asked you, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a film director. Well, what's your new film all about?
Yeah, well, so thanks so much for having me, first of all. The answer to that question would be, I would have to start by saying that it's based on a short story by James Lee Burke, who is just a magnificent writer of thrillers, westerns, and the short story is called Winter Light, and it's essentially about a college professor played by Thandiwe living in a sort of a small town in the American West. She teaches at a college there, and she one day finds two hunters trespassing on her property, and she very politely asks them to leave, and that begins what becomes a real escalating battle of wills that really does spiral out of control. And I would say it is a modern day Western, exactly as you say. I love that you called it a noir, because that was definitely on my mind when I made the movie. But I think the experience of watching it is very much like a psychological thriller.
And there's also a slight echo of Straw Dogs.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're referencing, like, if you make a movie set in the West and you have a kind of homesteader character and you have the sort of bandit characters, you have the sheriff, you have the town, we're really like exploring the Western genre in this movie. So it'll probably remind you of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. But also the idea of the steady build up to, in the case of Straw Dogs, a reasonable individual, who is, well, I don't want to spill too many beans, but is driven to extreme measures.
I mean, and this is a classic, like the good person who is pushed and pushed and pushed until their ethics and their morals are really challenged. That was a big part of what made us want to tell this story in the first place, was that kind of internal struggle of the character. Yeah, well, I think Straw Dog. We watched Straw Dogs early on as a sort of early reference as we were thinking about the movie. We watched a number of movies early on, but that was definitely one of them.
And you play fair. I mean, the bad people in this are really bad, and they're probably going to go straight to hell. But you do sort of, from time to time, question whether your protagonist is maybe pushing a little too hard, not only in the context of the people on her property, but in her professional life as well.
Well, I think this is a trap that genre movies fall into quite often, which is, that the characters are archetypes and nothing more, and one thing we really wanted to do with this movie was make it more complex than that and more challenging than that. And, I think there's been so many great villains in movies. We were thinking of all our characters as humans. They're all on the journey together, trying to figure out how to live, like what they think, like they're acting sometimes impulsively, sometimes in a more considered way. Everybody, including the protagonist, can make mistakes, has a backstory, like is, screwed up in some ways and has it all figured out in other ways. I mean, everyone's doing their best, especially in such an inhospitable landscape. And frankly, what is at times an inhospitable, country.
And again, I don't know how much of the story you want revealed ahead of time, but your protagonist, we find out fairly early on, probably can take care of herself, though that's not an absolute certainty. Put it that way.
I mean, it's tricky because she, like a lot of Western protagonists, she is someone who comes from a city, who has gone to the country to start over. And, you know, frankly, like, because it's so beautiful, you know, I mean, it's, what she says about why she moved to, you know, that part of the world in the movie is just what I think. Like, that's just me. When I went to Montana for the first time, I was like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been, you know? And, you know, there's a lot of feelings in there that I think people can relate to. But, you know, the rules don't apply equally to everyone in this place. I mean,
Yes.
you know, her being truly a fish out of water there. I mean, it's, you know, it's just the fact, the reality is, like, it's a very white area. It's a very segregated area. It's a very isolating area in lots of ways. And, you know, I think along with that beauty comes a sense of like, okay, well, I have to take care of myself. And she is someone who has courage and grit and experience, and like, she does know how to handle herself. But at the same time, like, you know, that doesn't make it easy. So yeah, you're right.
Of course, I have to say, coming to this from, you know, 20 years of experience in academia, you know, there are times I was wondering, now who is going to be the most dangerous individual for
And you knew the answer.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I teach as well, and both my parents are college professors, and so, you know, the college storyline of her workplace and like her relationships to her colleagues and the students, you know, is something that I was pretty familiar with, and this is what my parents talked about at the dinner table when I was growing up, you know, and a big part of it for me was like, it's not specifically, yes, it's a college, but it kind of, in our story, represents institutional behavior, you know, just like these long-standing, hallowed institutions that really do need to get shaken up from time to time, like, to function better. And I think anybody who's taught knows the uphill battle of, you know, trying to get anything to function right, you know.
Now, at what point was Newton part of this picture?
You know, very early. I mean, you know, and what I mean by that is we had, you know, obviously we'd spent a very long time working on the script and trying to get the movie financed. And it wasn't a terribly expensive movie, so we got into it moved pretty quickly. And, you know, I can't think of anyone that I would rather have in the role than Thandiwe. So what I did was I wrote her a letter, which was passed to her, you know, through her agents, and I just made my case about why I thought she was the perfect person for it. She read the script and immediately responded to it, and I mean, you know, it doesn't usually work like that. I will say, like, she just kind of got what we were trying to do, and she felt it on a really deep level. And our first conversation, it was super clear to me that this was the right pick. I mean, the reason that I was interested in her for this role is you have to believe some pretty disparate things about this character. You know, like, you have to believe that she's someone's favorite college professor, and also that she can, you know, kick some serious butt, you know? And so, like, not everyone can do that, and also have the kind of vulnerability and the sensitivity and like just the listening, frankly. Like, that's what I look for as a director, is like, am I seeing real listening and responding, you know? And then add to that she is just a very engaged person in her own life, like with, you know, causes that matter to her, and like, she's very outspoken. Like, I just felt like she would dig what we were doing, and she did.
Well, also the idea that like your protagonist, I assume, and I don't want to read too much in her decision to recently change her first name, but the idea that she has been condescended to, perhaps is the right word, earlier in her career, like her character, you know, in this movie, not only by the ruffians in town, but even, you know, the head of her department. And, you know, it's like, well,
yeah, I think anyone, any, you know, woman in Hollywood, and even more so a Black woman, a woman of color of any kind, like, in Hollywood, is going to have have some tough experiences, you know, and like experience racism and sexism and, you know, exclusion, and frankly, not just in Hollywood. I mean, it's just,
Well, no,
you know, you know, clearly like these are experiences that resonated with her when she read the script, and that's why I think that's why she responded, because she felt it, you know. I mean, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but like
no,
she
no.
and I have talked so much over the last few years about how much this story means to her, and you know how much she's identified with it. And I could feel that every day that we were on set, you know, like she was carrying this role, and it's a heavy burden, you know, like she had to go to some places that have been traumatic for her in the past. But I think I get the impression that it was somewhat cathartic for her to feel like this gave her a way to, you know, vent some of those things. And you know, I think it shows. Like I know I'm super biased, but like I think it's like her best work. Like I think she's in every scene of the movie. She carries the whole thing, and you know, it was a privilege to watch her do it.
Well, also you got to Montana, and that's beautiful country there. I
It sure
mean,
is. No, I mean, I kind of want to make every movie in Montana. And like I'm from rural New Hampshire, and I really love winter. And this movie is set in the winter. And you know, the winter in Montana is definitely some tough conditions, but you know, it really bonds people to like go to a location like that and like, kind of be overwhelmed by the just the beauty of the landscape. It is unspoiled wilderness, and it's incredibly awe-inspiring. And you know, this movie is truly designed to be seen on a big screen, like on the biggest screen possible.
oh, yes.
It is a big outdoor movie, and you know, I think there's almost a mythic aspect to it, where you know, when you put like characters in such a big landscape, the audience immediately starts thinking of these existential questions, like our lives seem so insignificant. I think that's what I get out of going to a place like that, is you're reminded in a very good way how insignificant you are, you know. And that has an ironic effect in this movie, where you know, everything is so intense for these characters, but the landscape has seen it all before.
And again, that brings up the neo-Western sort of edge to it, the idea that you can imagine, as you say, you know, the landscape has seen dramas like this, very much like this, unfold again and again, whether it be, you know, cowboys trying to get cattle across, you know, the plain, or people go to town, or people trying to, well, you know, live their lives and not be, well,
Yeah, bothered.
not be messed with.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, I will say, like, you know, you mentioned the neo-Western, like revisionist Westerns, that there's a critique embedded in there of how much destruction was, you know, wrought by the westward expansion on, you know, Native Americans and, you know, other indigenous peoples in the whole West. And that's something we want to allude to in the movie as well. I mean, like, in the short story, the student character is you know, a blonde white Montana girl, and in our movie, which is really trying to allude to the Western in all kinds of ways, you know, Tanaya Beatty plays that character, and you know, and it's now an indigenous student with a whole set of experiences to bring to bear as well. And like, a lot of this is in the subtext of the movie, but you know, because we're really not we're not trying to tell you what to think about anything. We want you to be contemplating these things. We want you to be aware of them and consider, you know. But you know, in our effort to make it a modern Western, we considered all kinds of things.
Well, Julian, you've been very generous with time, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you one last question. Jefferson White is such a nice fellow in Yellowstone, and many of our readers have grown to love him. They are constantly amazed that he keeps all these beautiful women chasing after him, but nonetheless, you somehow brought out the badass in him. What there about him that made you think, yeah, I got to cast this guy for this role?
So the funny thing about this movie is it's been going on so long. I mean, I auditioned Jefferson White in 2018, and so he was not really Jimmy yet, you know. Now Jefferson is the sweetest, kindest, most and he's absolutely hilarious too, by the way. He is constantly joking. He's just the best guy to work with. We had such a great cast. I can't say, like, we just had such a lovely group of people to work with. But yeah, I mean, the nicest people have the darkest sides to them that they can bring out, you know. I mean, he is a very powerful force in this movie. And if you are a fan of Yellowstone, it's a side of him you have not seen. I don't think it will change your love for him. But I think as an actor, I'm excited that he had a chance to do something, you know, that is outside of his wheelhouse. So,
well, you know, there's a theory that, you know, sometimes you can work out, you know, your bad mojo by playing bad people, or, you know, occasionally playing bad people.
Yeah, this is why we do this. We find out about ourselves, you know. This is the real thing that, you know, artists of all kinds are doing, is exploring our own, like, lives. And you know, this idea that, like, we were trying to make all the characters not black and white but gray, you know, like everyone is complex. I mean, he looks very threatening on this poster, you know, and I think he's incredibly scary in the movie, but there's humanity to his role as well. I mean, I think, you know, he's a very commanding actor, and I can't wait to see someone give him a real showcase, like a juicy lead role, because I think he's going to be, he's going to knock that out of the park. I mean, he's amazing in this movie. So, yeah.
Well, Julian Higgins, the movie is God's Country, and I have been raving about it to friends since I streamed it from Sundance earlier this year.
Wow, thank you so much.
And I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen.
Yes, I hope you get a huge screen and a great sound system.
There you go.
But thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate all the questions.
And, you know, be safe and take care of yourself.
You too.